Hi, this is Elizabeth from Felted Sky Studio, here with the instructions for our Succulents needle felting kit. So before we get started, there are a few other things you'll want to have on hand. The most important is a mat for needle felting. You'll want to have perhaps a scissors handy and a damp rag. And the last thing is to have a measuring tape or a ruler. So let's go ahead and open your box and we'll see what's inside. So we'll take out all the wool and let's just set the little pots aside for now. On the bottom we have the instruction sheet and the needles. So let me just tell you a little bit about this wool. So all the wool in this kit is what we call our bluegrass felting bats. So this is wool that we sell that's made just for us, just the way that we like it. And it's made in Kentucky, that's why we call it a bluegrass felting bat. So it's nice and springy and it's all domestic wool. We really enjoy it, so hopefully you will too. Alright, so that's the wool. The needles, you have two types. If you forget which types they are, you can refer back to the instruction sheet here. And also all of the colors of wool are described here. Two other things about the instruction sheet. There are little numbers next to each step. That is the time stamp on the video. So if you want to refer back and watch some parts over, you can go right to where you want to go using the timestamps. And also I'll be mentioning this as we go along, but the dimensions of all the leaves are in the instruction sheet. Alright. So let's put our mat out, and the first succulent we are going to work on is our light green one. So this was based off of the Sedum Adolphi. That's how I'm going to say it, I guess. So that's the succulent that it is based on. So what you're going to need to do is make all of the leaves individually, and then we will be putting them together at the end. So I just want to show you what we're working towards. So the sizing is just a little different. So we have two that are this size, and then they go up a little bit in size, 5 in this size, and 2 in the largest size. So the way that you make the different sizes has mostly to do with how you prepare the wool for each piece. So the wool that you start with is going to determine the finished size. So I am actually going to go through each size and show you how to roll for each size, and then we'll just go ahead and shape one leaf because they're all really done the same. What is different is how you roll the amount of wool in the beginning. So we're going to be rolling. Just push that out of the way a little. So take your green, apple green, and we want the fibers going this way. So this is you kind of learn how to see this or feel for it as you go along, but the fibers are all in this direction. So we don't want to open it up as much like this. We want the fibers to be going in this direction as we do our roll. So at the end, what we're going to do is tear off a piece that is about the height that we want our little leaf to be, or the length. So I'm going to tear it like this, tear into the wool, and then we're going to roll. So folding over on itself, we're going to make a little roll of wool like that. So I'm going over about 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4 seems to be about what we need for these leaves. So then we're just going to pull the extra off, and then we have a roll. So this actually seems like it's a little bit big for my smallest leaf. So if you have a little bit of extra, what we can do is just pull off the bottom. So then we're going to be felting this top part, and this bottom is just going to stay unfelted. You can see here. So that's how we are going to attach it together into a plant. Alright, so we would make two that are this little size, and when we felt them down, it's going to shrink down a little bit, but not incredibly much. So that's going to be good for that size. And then again, these dimensions of the finished ones are in the instruction sheet. So the next size up, we'll just make it a little bit wider when we tear. So again, rolling over about 4 times and then tear off. Just kind of tuck in the rest. And this is kind of just, you'll get the feel for it. It's something that takes a little bit of practice to feel it, if you've got enough wool or not quite enough. And again, if it seems a little bit much, tear off. If you feel like you don't have enough, there is extra wool in the kit, so there is some extra in case you make a few leaves that, you know, don't seem quite right or you can't get them to the right dimensions. So the next ones are just a little bit bigger, not a whole lot. This is all very kind of subtle differences, but here's how I'd roll the next one. So let's see, going up in sizes, let me get back our original rolls. So we have small, a little bigger, a little bigger, and then the final one will be the biggest roll. And even as we're doing some of the felting, I find that they tend to be a little bit too long rather than too short, usually is what happens with mine. They kind of lengthen out. So we may need to take off a little bit of that too. But your rolls should be something like this, and just put the leaves next to them that we are going to be felting from these rolls. So there we have it. And let's just work perhaps this size. We need 5 of those. We'll just work this one. They're all worked the same. So we'll just do one, and then you can re-watch the video if you need to do your other leaves. So now let's get our green tipped needle. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start at the tip. So this is going to be our little rounded tip at the top. So we want it to maintain, you know, a shape here that it still has a kind of a pointiness at the top. So we're not going to poke down directly into it. The way that we shape is to poke where we want the wool to indent in, and the more you poke any particular area, the more it's going to sculpt that area and make the wool condense in and felt together. So the felting is actually the little wool fibers, they tangle together, and that's what we're doing here. And the needles have these little teeny tiny barbs on the ends, which are quite hard to see actually, but these little barbs are enough to tangle the fibers and felt the wool. So we're going to poke in at an angle. So the way that you angle the needle has a lot to do with the sculpting that you will be doing. So we're going to be angling the needle this way towards the base of the leaf for this first part. So you can hear I'm going into the mat, so that's what the mat is here for, and you want to hear that sound. So I just went down one side, I'm going to start going down the other side, and we're not going to poke into that tip right now so that we maintain that shape. So we want to work all over the leaf and not do any one area too much at first to keep our sculpting nice and even. So there's a lot of back and forth and side to side. Alright, now we're going to poke down kind of straight into the mat to flatten out this part of the leaf. So this is going to be the inside, so pointing toward the plant. Let me get our original one. So the inside of the leaves are more flat and the outsides are just a little bit rounded. So the flattest part is going to be pointing in towards the center of the plant. So that's what we're working on now. We're going to just poke straight down into the mat, and that's going to start to flatten out this side of the leaf. So once we have that, you can see that our roll is starting to get flatter for sure. We're going to turn over to the back side, and again, we're not worrying about this extra part at the bottom. We're only felting the leaf part that we will be able to see at the end. So for this part, we're going to try and push the wool kind of up towards the center, angling our needle toward the midline. So this is going to make the back just a little more rounded, and we want the other side where we just were to be flat, but we want this side to be just a little more rounded. So we're going to poke down the sides, but then we're going to poke up towards the middle for a bit more of a roundedness on the back of the leaf here. And we'll flip around and do the other side. And I'll go down the sides again, very close to the mat. We can poke down a little bit on the tip now. Just needs to be felted some, but we don't want to poke on it so much that we lose our nice pointed, little bit of a pointed top there. Alright, there's what we have so far, and it's going to continue to get flatter and smaller, and if it's too fat looking, you can even kind of pull it a little bit if it's not flattening out as much as we would like. And again, even at this point, if it seems a little too long, we can pull off a little bit of wool. And the nice thing about this plant is if your dimensions don't come out exactly right, you can shift around the leaves. So even if you were trying for a certain size, since you're doing 4 different sizes, if it comes out a little too small or a little too big than what you were going for, just shift it around into a different position in the plant. So at this point we can put on our highlight colors. So the 2 very smallest leaves, which we are not doing right now, but the 2 very smallest just stay green without any highlight colors. But the rest of them I think look nice. It gives them a little more of a realistic look to have some other highlight colors. So there, what I just did, we'll show you again, is we're going to pull off just a little piece of yellow, the sunshine color, and we want it to be kind of wispy and opened up like this because you still want to see the green through it. So we're just going to take the piece and wrap it around so that it looks like that. And then we're going to take also just a little tiny piece of this orange color called terracotta. So just a very small piece, and this is going to go over the tip of the leaf like that. So once these are in place, then we're going to poke some more to get them very well attached. But we're still poking in the same way as before, kind of to keep our sculpting going. We're going to go down each side where this orange is, and there in the middle, and then catch this yellow. And you can hopefully see this, you can kind of move the wool over with the needle to kind of push it into place and then poke it down. So you can use the tip of the needle to kind of get the wool going where you want it to go. So over to the back again. And again on the back, we're trying to keep it rounded. We're kind of pushing the wool up from the sides a bit to the center. So we just keep working in the same way, kind of side to side, back to front, flip it around. So I just want to poke everywhere, kind of evenly until we get all the shaping done that we want. And we want it to be shrinking down and kind of smoothing out, not as fuzzy, and pretty well felted so that it will be durable and hold its shape. And there won't be too many fuzzies over time that pop back up. I think we have just a little bit farther to go, so we'll just continue on. Again, on the front side, what I'm calling the front side, poke straight down into the mat. That's making it flatten out. Catch the sides again. Also definitely want to watch your fingers. Hopefully you have not poked yourself yet, but it's very important to try and be conscious of where your needle is and where your other fingers are. And with these little leaves, you may poke yourself, but try to be very careful and avoid it as much as possible. But it's hard to, for me anyway, to do the felting without holding it a little bit with my other hand. But if you find that you are prone to poking yourself, you can try just leaving it on the mat and poking around without your other hand even on the leaf. Alright, I think this one is about finished. So again, the leaf really starts here. We're not going to worry about this unfelted part. And it's a pretty good shape. Feels like it's condensed down well. And pretty well felted. So one last little thing you can do is if you've got little fuzzies, this might be cheating just a bit, but I like to take my scissors, if there's any little wool fibers still kind of poking up, you just take and shave them off with the scissors, and then our leaf is finished. So go ahead and make all of your leaves referring back to the instruction sheet for dimensions, and then when you're finished, we'll put the plant together. Okay, so to put the plant together, we're going to start in the middle. So we're going to start with our two smallest and then work our way around. So here are the two smallest leaves, and we're going to put them together with their flattest side facing each other. And then we're going to poke them right at their bases. So we're going to be doing this part with the yellow needle. I need to grab my yellow needle. So holding them together right at the base of those leaves, we're just going to poke straight across down into the mat. And then flip over and poke the other side. So this we need a little bit more force than when we were sculpting, but we need to make sure that this needle gets all the way down through both of these, down into the mat, and that will hold them together. So we can go over that a couple times and maybe do the sides a little bit too. And there we have it. So then we're going to go up to the neck size. So there are two in the neck size up. And we're going to put these perpendicular on either side of those first leaves. So this we can probably still do, hold all of these together. And then poke straight in again at the base of the leaf. So I'm poking in pretty hard. Make sure we get all the way in there so they'll hold together. Then I'm going to flip around to the other side and get that other leaf. Like that. And then we go up to the next size, which we have 5 of. So I'm going to pick 2 of those. And these we want to be across from each other, but not quite perpendicular like that. We want them to be a little bit more on the diagonal, if that makes sense, because the next leaves are going in these other spots. Alright, so it's going to look like this. And these we probably need to start doing one at a time. I'm not sure we can hold it all together and get the felting needle through all those layers. So I'm just going to start doing one at a time. So get that one attached, and then the other one is going over here we'll put this down on that side and get this one. And if they're not quite in the right spots, it's even possible to just pull it off entirely, because they're not really attached so much that you can't get them back off. So if your placement is not quite to your liking, just pull them off and redo. Now we're going to go up to the two largest. So we're going to have one of these over here and one of these over there. And these can move down the plant just a little bit, so we don't have to keep them all right up in here with our first ones. We're going to move it down just slightly moving down a little bit. And I may have gone down a bit too far. So again, I'm just going to even take that one off, slide it back up a bit. I didn't like quite where he was. So I'll go in again and poke it in. And then we'll do the one on the other side. So there it is, and then decide where you want to place your last three. So I kind of like to figure out what looks to me like it would be a good front, and the last three are going to be positioned a little farther down, but more in the front. There's not going to be one, so if this is the front, I like to be able to see those last three leaves. So I think we'll go with one. I just lost where I was going to put them. So again, just tinker around until you kind of like the looks of it. I think I'm going to go with right here. So one here. And one over here. And one here. And again, this is not exact. We're kind of mimicking nature. Not all plants look exactly the same. We can open the leaves up a little bit at the end. So there it is, and now we want to go around and just make our stem a little bit more felted. And this will help everything hold together and just kind of look a little better at the bottom. But most of this will be covered up by our dirt in our pot. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but we want it to look just a little more smoothed out and have everything felted together. A little bit of a stem here, so I'm just poking pretty hard at this point. Get that needle through all these layers. And make sure that they're going to all hold together nicely. So whenever you feel like that has happened and your layers are all felted together at the bottom, then this plant will be finished. There it is. Okay, so the next plant we're going to work on is this one. So this is based off of the Echeveria Lola succulent. And for this one, we are going to need 3 of these small leaves, 3 of the next size, 3 of the next size up, and 4 of the largest. So just take some of these off so you can see them better. So we have 4 sizes, and again the dimensions are in the instruction sheet. And the way that we are going to work these is to make folded pieces of our wool, not really a roll. But again, the way that we're changing the sizes is by the amount of wool that we start out with. So for the little one, what we're going to do, again, this is the way that the wool fibers are going. So I'm going to set my piece of wool here, and so we're going to take a small tear for our little one, and then for these we're going to fold. So it's not as much of a roll as folding it into a little leaf shape. So folding it around and then tear off. So this is going to be my folded piece of wool for the little one. And it's quite fluffy, so it's kind of hard to tell how much it will shrink down, but that will definitely shrink down as we felt it. So then for the next size, we're going to tear off a little bit bigger piece. And again, we're just going to figure out how to kind of fold it into our leaf shape and tear off. So that's that leaf shape. And again, if you get too much wool, it's very easy just to pull some off. If you don't have enough, you can add other pieces on, or just start over and get another piece for a different leaf. So that is the size for that one. And then going up to our next size, this is actually a pretty good amount. So we're going to fold it over. So it's 2 or 3 layers thick, but we're doing our folding, trying to get into that leaf shape. That's a pretty good size for this one. And then for the last leaves, which you will have 4 of, so we need to start out with it even a little bit wider. Here's a piece for the biggest leaf. So we'll have something like that. And again, if you need to add on, adding more is a little bit easier. Well, really taking away is also pretty easy. So there we have examples of leaves with their rolls. So that will create the sizes. Alright, so let's work of our medium leaves. So what we're going to do for this one is, again, with our green needle, we are going to start shaping right away. So you can see in the top of our leaf there are little indents and then a little bit of a pointed part at the very top. So we want to try and get that going from the beginning. So we're going to poke on either side of that pointed tip, but we're not going to poke right down into that pointed tip at this point. So I'm angling this way, and then I'm going to poke into the other side of the top of our leaf. You can see I already have kind of that shaping started for our top point. I'm just going to go around the sides a little bit. And then for these leaves, we want to pick which one is going to be facing towards the center of the plant. It's a little bit curved, you can see on the inside, so we have a bit of a concaved part, and then on the back it's more curved that way. So this side is looking like it's going to be my more concave curve, the inner part of the leaf facing the center of the plant. So I'm poking straight into the mat for this one. And to help get that roundedness, it's also good to pull up off of the mat a little bit. And that helps sometimes to get it a little more rounded. See, we've already got that started. Go out towards the edges a little bit more. And the other thing we want to do for shaping is push this way, push the wool up to get the roundedness at the bottom. So kind of pushing the wool up towards the center a little bit at the bottom. This helps us give us that roundedness at the bottom. Alright, so now we can flip around to the other side, what I'm calling the back. And again, we want this to be a little bit more rounded up towards the center. So we're just kind of working the wool up into the shape we want. And kind of pushing towards the middle, the angle of the needle. Again, we want to go in at the tip on both sides. We could do just a little gentle poking on the sides of that tip, but we don't want to do too much with that still. Alright, I'm back to the other side. So the highlight colors on this leaf are our blue called Lagoon, a little bit darker of a bluey green, and this very light green called Seafoam. So with our Lagoon color, we're just going to tear off a small kind of wispy piece, and that goes in the center. So we can poke that down now. Then this goes on our concave curved side, the side that's going to face the center of the plant. And then we can also get a little piece of our Seafoam color. So we just need to pull off a very small little piece, about like this. And then we're going to lay that over the top of the leaf. So then again, even with this, we're poking it in on both sides of our little point so that we can maintain that point if possible. Extra long little wool fibers there that needed to be picked out. We'll flip over and get it attached to the back side. So again, we're just going to keep going over all the parts of the leaf the way that we have been. So around the edges and quite a bit in the center. We want it to really flatten out and start to get well felted now. So poking everywhere. Working on our little pointy tip. Go to the back side again. Alright, so I feel like this is pretty well poked everywhere. Can work just a little extra on that concave curve there. So holding the leaf up a little bit off of the mat seems to help with that. Poke very gently on this little tip, but we're looking like we're pretty well finished. So again, it's not the exact size as our example leaf, but it's fairly close. So again, the dimensions are just to give you kind of a good idea of what you're shooting for, but it doesn't have to be exact, and it will still look good when we put them all together. So again, if you have some little fuzzies, fibers sticking up, you could trim those just a little bit with the scissors. And then this leaf we'll call finished. So go ahead and make all the rest of your leaves, and then we will put this plant together. So again, we're starting in the center. We're going to do the first 3 leaves in the center as our first thing for putting this plant together. So I have the 3 little leaves. So these are going together about like that. And we'll try and hold them in place. Oh, we need our yellow tipped needle now. Gives us a little more increased depth for getting these together. just turning them and getting them attached together. So there we have it. And then at this point we're going to get one more little ball of our mint green color that we made the leaves with. So just roll it a little bit to get it into a ball. And this is because we just want a little something at the very center. So I'm going to just poke straight down into it and kind of go in a line. So I'd like this to look like two little tiny leaves in the very center. So that's what I have starting out. And then we can take the green needle as well and just kind of clean these up a bit. The yellow needle definitely a little more oomph for getting those felted in there. So that's what we want at the center. So if someone looks down into the top, they're looking at something there. So next we'll get our next size of leaves. So 3 that are the next size. And these are going to go, so here where these two come together, we're going to put that right there. So we're kind of staggering them. Going to go like that. So I'm not sure if we can hold all of these together. We might need to go to one at a time already for this plant. So again, going in nice and vigorously right at the base of the leaf. We'll position our next leaf. And then the next leaf. Okay, so then we go up in size again. So these are doing the same thing. So where these two come together, that's where this one is going to go. Like that. Again, it's a little easier to do one at a time. Alright, so that's what we have so far, and then we need to get all of our largest leaves. And these are going to be positioned slightly differently. I want to kind of encompass all of these previous leaves. I have 4 on this outer layer. They're going to do something like that. And they can overlap each other even just a bit if they need to. I have to stab pretty hard at this point, trying to get into all those layers of wool, helping it all hold together. Okay, so there is our succulent, and I feel like we can also, if you need to, stab straight down in with some of these if your leaves look like they need a little extra positioning. And then around the outsides to kind of hold it all together in the placement that we want, we can go up the leaves just a little bit at the bottom. So like this one I can attach heading up just a little bit so that these all hold together the way that we want. And then this bottom stem part, you can felt that a little bit too at this point, although again not much of it will be showing, but just to help everything hold together. Again, this leaf I might go up just a little bit so that it kind of overlaps, stays in place. And same with this guy. And there it is, looking pretty good. So the last plant that we're going to work on is this one called Haworthia, also known as a zebra plant. So as we do these leaves, you can see that I have put on little dots on mine, and the dots are in rows, like little zebra stripes. You can also either leave those off entirely, or you can just put stripes on that are solid stripes. So that's kind of personal preference. I think the dots look pretty cool, but they are more time consuming. So if you don't want to go through all of that, there are other options. So for this plant we need 3 leaves that I consider to be big, the largest, and then 3 medium, and 2 small. So there's not a whole lot of difference between the big and the medium, but they are a little bit wider at the bases, and the medium one is just a little bit shorter. So again, it all goes back to how we roll the wool. So let me show you that. So for a big leaf, we're going to tear into the wool like this and make a roll again. And we want the roll, we're just going to go over 2 to 3 times. So I'm over once here, and then 2. And we want the roll to be wider at one end and narrower, tapering to a point at the other end. So it's kind of like a really long triangle. See the roll there. So once we're over twice, I'm going to pull off the rest of the wool and just finish getting all of the little fibers attached together. So here is what we're starting out with for the big one. And then the medium leaf here, just need not quite as much width to start with. Again, I'm folding over once, twice, and so this needs to be a little bit thinner, a little less wool, and again trying to get a point tapered to a point at one end and a little wider at the other end. Really just folding over 2 times, but then continuing on so that we have all of our little fibers how we want them. And then there was big, here's medium. Not a lot of difference, it's kind of a subtle difference, and this might even be a little too much wool, so again, if you need to adjust, we can unroll a little bit, even pull off a little bit of wool. I just want to get the thickness that's going to work for our leaf. Alright, and for the little one, so here is a place to roll for a small one. You want to do this tighter, we don't need much wool in this, so just fold over twice, but really keeping it thinner. And a tighter little folded over roll. So there's the wool we will start with for a small size. Show you all together. Okay, so let's work perhaps the medium, and they all work the same again, so you can rewind and watch again for working the other ones. So sometimes it also helps to do this on the mat, it kind of helps it stick together. So I'm going to get it positioned and rolled how I want, and then we're going with our green needle again. I'm just going to poke straight down to make sure this is all kind of holding together, even before we do very much shaping. And we might go to the other side. We have some wool that we need to tuck in. Tuck in. Alright, so now we have it holding together, and we want to figure out which is going to be our flatter side, which we will put this lighter green wool on. So again, that flat side is going to be facing the center of the plant, and then our outside is we're gonna try and make it just a little more rounded, and then that's what's gonna get our stripes if you're gonna put those on. So this piece of wool, I feel like this is already gonna be curving a little more and be my flat side, and then this will be my back side. So we'll poke the front side that's going to be facing the middle of the plant straight down into the mat again. And then for the sides, we need to tuck the little tip in a little bit. But again, we are not going to go straight in at the top right now. So we want to maintain our nice pointy tip. So we're going to go down the sides, angling the needle towards the base of the leaf. And now I'm angling up on this other side, up towards the tip, so whatever way works for you, but we just need to get into the sides with our needle. fold the fibers over on themselves to keep that tip. And then we'll go to our back side, and again, the idea that I have is to push the wool up towards the center, keeping it a little more rounded. Go to the other side. We have a little bit of extra here at the bottom. So at this point, it's seeming like a little much, so I'm just going to pull some of that extra off and continue on with our felting and shaping. So we need a little bit down there for helping us to attach and have a bit of a stem at the bottom to go into the pot, but we don't need it to be a whole lot. So I can even hold it a little bit up so that I'm going a little more into the side here. Hopefully you can see that. And back to our flat side. Flipped it over again. So really, it's just all about sculpting very evenly all over our leaf shape. Okay, at this point we have a pretty nice shape going on. So we're going to continue to felt it a little bit more. But right now we could do a little bit of rolling. So this is why I suggested to have a damp rag handy. So if your hands are dry and not moist at all, moisten your hands on a rag or a sponge. And then we're just going to roll, just like you would do with a snake when you were little, or if you were doing some kind of pottery, sometimes you need to roll with clay. So a little bit of rolling just helps to smooth out the fibers and give us that nice pointed tip. Alright, so at this point we can felt just a little bit more with the needle. We're about ready to put on our green for the middle. So get your green, leaf green here, and we're just going to pull off a small piece. It's going to be about like this. And then we're going to take the tip and pull it out so it's nice and thin. And then we'll just attach the tip. Again, this is going on the inside of the leaf, the flatter part that will be towards the inside of the plant. Just give it a bit of a highlight color. I think it helps it to look just a little more interesting. A little more real. So we're just kind of holding it down so that it's smoothed out, and then just poking from the tip down to the base and getting this green nice and attached. You can hear I'm still going into the mat, but I want to poke on this a little more gently if possible, because we don't want so much green to come through onto the other side of the leaf. So we want the other side to stay dark green, and you'll see when I flip it around, there's some fuzziness there where the fibers have come through. But for the most part, we're still pretty dark green on the back. So gentler poking so we get it attached, but we don't want to poke too many of these fibers all the way through to that other side. Okay, so now we have that on, and go to the other side, and if you angle your needle a bit extra, so instead of poking with the needle as much straight up and down, if you poke with the needle a little more side to side, you can kind of get some of these little fuzzy fibers that came through to lay back down, poking them from the sides. And then we can also do a little more rolling, and that will also help to smooth things out again. And then after rolling, I like to just go over everything one more time, making sure everywhere is well felted, smoothed out. And there we have our medium leaf. So again, if you see any little fuzzies that just did not get smoothed, you can take your scissors and trim them just a bit. And now it's time to put on dots. So again, we have rows of little teeny tiny dots. So get your cream colored wool, this one we call polar bear, and you're just going to pull off just a little teeny tiny piece. So just a little piece, and then again use the rag if you need a little moisture on your hands, but we're just going to roll a little piece into a ball. Just very tiny. And these are slightly finicky, difficult to work with, but hopefully you'll get the hang of it if you want to put these on. So once you have your ball, we're just going to try and catch just at the very edge of it and do some very deliberate stabs down into the leaf, just from the edge of the ball. So we don't want to just go at it all over the place, because sometimes you can kind of bury it in there if you're not careful. So just very deliberate stabs, just catching the sides of the little ball. And you see we've got it attached there. So this part is fairly time consuming if you want to put in all the little dots. So you'll just pull off little teeny tiny pieces and roll, and then just catch an edge or two and stab it down in there. So alternatively, if you do not want to do the dots, because there are so many, and let me just also point out that, you know, on these thinner leaves you might put 3 or 4 dots in a row. On the bigger leaves that are a little wider at the bottom, you could have 5 or even 6 dots in a row. And as you go up the leaf, you'll just put less, whatever kind of fits on the leaf. So if you prefer more of a stripe, which is also a little bit faster, what you can do is take your white wool and pull out a thin little piece. And then again, you could roll this a little bit to help it hold together before you put it on. And this is a little bit wide for my leaf, so you can tear off extra parts at the end. So you want to do this kind of a stripe that is just a line going across, I would poke it at the end. So start it right at the side and then poke across your white line over to the other end, and then just poke that end in. Very good. Make sure it's going to hold, and then go over the line a couple of times. And you could do a plant with lines as its stripes, and that does go a little bit faster. So go ahead and make the rest of your leaves. You can rewind the video if you need to, and refer back to the instruction sheet for dimensions that you're shooting for, and then we'll be ready to put that one together. Okay, so to put our zebra plant together, we're going to start with the medium leaves, so the medium size, and these are going to go together like this. So they kind of form a little triangle if you look at them from above. So again, I will try and hold them together, and we'll need our yellow tipped needle, actually, as with the other plants. So we're just going to try and get these to hold together, keeping them in their kind of triangle shape placement. I'll just keep turning and poking until they're all holding together. Okay, so I think that will work. So now we need to get our large size leaves, and these are going to go, again, kind of where two come together at the bottom. We want to put the large one over that gap. So I'll just do one at a time for these. Sometimes the wool at the bottom likes to get in the way. So again, where two of them come together, that's where we will line up the larger one. Going over the whole bottom of the leaf, making sure it's well attached. And we have one more of these right here. Okay, so now we have all of those attached, and at this point you want to figure out what looks like it might be a good front of the plant. So we're going to put our two small leaves, and we want them, when we place them, to be seen. I'm thinking this might be the front, and then I have one of these over here and one of them over here. So we'll put that on. And then I think I will put my other small leaf over here. Again, this is kind of up to you what you think looks the best for your plant. And you can change the placement if you want. And again, if you need to take a leaf off, just tear it off and put it back on. You need to change where you have it. Alright, so there is our zebra plant. So the last part, and what we need to do, is to put our plants into their pots. So get your brown wool. We can get the camera to focus up there. Okay, so here's our brown wool that's going to be our dirt. So we're going to tear this into 3 strips, trying to get them to be fairly even. So there's 1 strip, 2 strips, and 3 strips. Alright, so our first plant, we need to get our Sedum Adolphi, and this one you can see if we just put it right into the pot, it sinks down a little too far, so we want it to be poking out of the pot, you know, so we can see it very nicely. So take one of your strips and we're going to tear off a little bit from the end. Then maybe fold this over a little, so put this into the pot like that. So then when we put our sedum in, it will be at the right level. Actually, I think that was a bit much, so again, play around with this so you get kind of like if you were doing a real potted plant. Sometimes you need to put some into the bottom, some dirt, and then we're going to take our brown wool and tuck it in and just start wrapping it around the plant. So this is going to hold it in place and serve as our dirt. So around we go. Do once or twice, kind of depending on what your plant seems to need. Going around twice, and if it's too much, you just tear off the extra wool. And there it is. There's how it looks in its pot. And we're just going to do this as well for the other plants. So if you need a little bit in the bottom, again, just tear off a little piece and add it to the bottom. And then we'll grab our Echeveria and again just start tucking in this brown wool right around the plant. We're going to just tuck, 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 and we'll hold it in place. Fill up the pot. So again, I think this is probably a little more than I need, so tear off any extras. And there is that plant. And just tuck it in, kind of mess around with it till it's how you want it to look. And then our last plant, our zebra plant. So here it is. And I think we do need a bit in the bottom of the pot. Just a little. And again, that might have been too much. It's kind of a fine line. Too little or too much. Around we go. Tucking in. And there we have it. So here they all are. So I hope you enjoyed making this kit and that you like the way that yours turned out. And if you need any more wool, or if you want to try any of our other kits, please find us at feltedsky.com. So as always, happy felting!